Ethan Hayes stood at the arrivals gate, his eyes narrowed to slits as he scanned the terminal. In 3 seconds, his gaze swept over every security camera, every potential sniper's perch on the upper levels, and every figure that lingered a moment too long. Then he relaxed. Clear. No immediate threats. 3 years. 3 years of blood and chaos since he'd left on that cryptic assignment. He'd been a rookie Green Beret then, handpicked for a Black Ops mission that had officially never happened. Now, he was the ghost, a living legend in the underworld, a name whispered in fear. None of that mattered anymore. The mission was over. All he wanted was a normal life, to return to the person he'd left behind. Ethan pulled an old burner phone from his pocket and dialed a number seared into his memory. "Hey, it's me," he said, his voice calm but laced with a thread of anticipation. "I'm back." A few seconds of silence stretched from the other end of the line. Then a woman's voice, as cold as ice, cut through the static. "Ethan, you finally decided to crawl back? 3 years without a word. I thought you were dead." "Operational security," Ethan explained, keeping it brief. "No contact allowed. Can I meet you at your office?" "Whatever." The line went dead. Ethan raised an eyebrow and flagged down an approaching Uber. "Thorn Industries headquarters, please." The car navigated the glittering artery of downtown Sterling City, pulling up before a towering skyscraper of glass and steel. Ethan looked up at the building. 3 years ago, it had been a modest office block. Now it was a landmark. "Things change," he murmured, paying for the ride and walking toward the main entrance. "Sir, do you have an appointment?" The receptionist intercepted him, her polite smile failing to hide a flicker of contempt. The man's worn jeans and simple jacket were clearly not up to the Thorn Industries standard. "I'm here to see Victoria Thorn," Ethan said calmly. The receptionist's expression soured. "You mean Ms. Thorn, the CEO? And you are her fiancée." The receptionist's eyes widened as she scanned him from head to toe, trying to gauge if this was some kind of pathetic joke. Just then, the head of security, a burly middle-aged man, approached. "What's going on here?" he asked, his eyes wary. "This gentleman claims he's Ms. Thorn's fiancée," the receptionist whispered. "That's ridiculous," the security chief snapped, his face darkening. "Ms. Thorn's fiancé is Caleb Vance, of Vance Holdings. Who the hell are you? Get out of here before I have you thrown out." A flicker of ice passed through Ethan's eyes before his expression settled back into a calm mask. He was about to speak when the private elevator chimed, its doors sliding open to reveal a familiar figure. Victoria Thorn was more radiant than he remembered. She wore a tailored Chanel suit that screamed power, her feet encased in Jimmy Choo heels, a Tiffany diamond necklace glittering at her throat. She radiated the cool, untouchable aura of a corporate queen. Her gaze swept the lobby, pausing for a fraction of a second on Ethan before she approached, her face a blank canvas. "Ms. Thorn, this man," the security chief began. "I know him," Victoria said, her voice clipped. She locked eyes with Ethan. "My office. Now." He followed her in silence. Inside the confined space of the elevator, the air was thick with her expensive perfume. He remembered she never used to wear any, claiming she preferred the scent of fresh air. "You've changed," Ethan said, breaking the silence. Victoria let out a short, sharp laugh. 3 years is a long time, Ethan. It can change anyone. You, on the other hand, you look exactly the same. So, ordinary." The elevator opened onto the top floor. Victoria led him into a lavish conference room, gestured for him to sit, and then pulled a check from her briefcase, sliding it across the polished mahogany table. "That's $5 million, she said, her voice devoid of any emotion. "It's enough for you to live comfortably in any city you choose. Our engagement is over." Ethan glanced at the check, then met her eyes. "Why? Why?" Victoria repeated, as if he'd asked the most absurd question in the world. "Look at you, Ethan, and then look at me. We don't live in the same world anymore. I'm the CEO of Thorn Industries. I'm on the Forbes 30 under 30 list. And you don't even own a decent suit. So, it's about money?" His tone remained unervingly calm. "It's about class." Victoria's voice rose. "I need a partner who can support my career, someone who belongs by my side at galas and board meetings. Not not some ghost from my past who vanished for 3 years. She'd left the insult hanging in the air, but Ethan finished it for her. Victoria took a deep breath. I don't want to make this ugly. Take the money and get out of my life. It's for the best. Ethan picked up the check. He looked at it for a long moment, then slowly, deliberately tore it in half, then in quarters. What are you doing? Victoria stared, shocked. I don't need your money, Victoria. Ethan placed the shredded pieces back on the table. If you wanted to end it, all you had to do was say so. I respect your choice. He stood, his height giving him an unexpected presence in the vast room. I wish you happiness. With that, he turned and walked out, his stride steady and unhurried. Victoria watched him go, a strange feeling creeping over her. It was as if she hadn't just dismissed an ordinary man, but had turned away a force of nature, a mountain whose peak she couldn't even see. Stepping out of the Thorn Industries tower, Ethan stood on the bustling street and glanced back at the gleaming skyscraper. The sun glinted off the glass, sharp and painful. He squinted, a self-deprecating smile touching his lips. 3 years of dodging bullets and cheating death, all for a $5 million severance package and a line, "We don't live in the same world anymore." He shook his head, burying the pointless emotions deep down where they couldn't hurt him, a necessary survival skill. Glancing around, he decided his first priority was finding a place to stay. Just then, the frantic clicking of high heels caught his attention. The sound came from a nearby alley, punctuated by panicked breaths and the low, menacing voices of several men. "Nowhere to run, Ms. Russo. Just come with us quietly." Ethan's brow furrowed, and he moved instinctively toward the sound. In a narrow alley, a young woman in a high-end business suit was scrambling away from 3 hulking men. The heel of one of her expensive shoes had snapped, causing her to stumble, and they were closing in fast. Ethan's gaze landed on her face, and he froze. That delicate face, those defiant eyes. He remembered her, the young woman he'd saved in Paris 3 years ago. The memory hit him like a tidal wave. That night, she'd been cornered by a local street gang. He could have walked on by. A killer shouldn't have attachments. But the raw courage in her eyes had struck a chord deep inside him. "Let her go," he'd said, and that one sentence had changed everything. The thugs hadn't taken the lean stranger seriously, not until they were all writhing on the cobblestones. The woman had stared at him, shaken, but before she could thank him, he had turned and vanished, leaving only a parting shot. Get home safe. He never thought he'd see a repeat performance, 3 years later in Sterling City. "Help! Somebody please help me." The woman's cry pulled Ethan back to the present. She'd spotted him at the mouth of the alley, a spark of hope igniting in her eyes. The 3 pursuers noticed him too. The one in the lead, a bald man with a jagged scar, snarled, "Mind your own business. Scram." Ethan sighed and stepped into the alley. He hadn't wanted to find trouble his first day back, but it seemed trouble had a way of finding him. I said, his voice was terrifyingly calm, "Let the lady go. You're asking to die." The bald man whipped out a switchblade and lunged. The next 10 seconds were, for Sophia Russo, a surreal nightmare. The plainly dressed man moved with a speed that was almost a blur. Every strike was precise, economical, and brutally effective. Her father's highly paid bodyguards were like children in his hands. The first man who charged was met with a single, sharp chop to the neck and collapsed without a sound. The second tried a sneak attack from behind and was rewarded with a hip throw that slammed him into the pavement. The third saw how the wind was blowing and turned to run, only to be knocked out cold by a trash can lid that seemed to fly out of nowhere. Sophia stared, her breath hitched in her throat. She had never seen anyone fight with such clean, lethal grace. It was like a violent, perfectly choreographed ballet. "Are you okay?" The man walked toward her, his voice now low and gentle, a stark contrast to the cold fury of a moment ago. Sophia looked up at his face and gasped. "It's you. From Paris, 3 years ago." Ethan raised an eyebrow. "You remember me?" "Of course I remember." Sophia's voice trembled with excitement. "I spent 3 months looking for you. You saved me and then just disappeared. I never even got your name." Ethan hadn't expected that. It had been a simple act for him, long since forgotten. "Ethan Hayes," he said, then gestured to the unconscious men. "Why were they chasing you?" Sophia's expression clouded over. It's a long story. They're my father's security. He sent them to bring me home. To marry a man I despise. Ethan nodded, not pressing for details. Everyone had their secrets. He knew that better than anyone. Do you need a hospital? He asked, noticing her ankle was already starting to swell. Sophia tried to take a step and winced. I think so. Could you help me? Ethan hesitated for a second, but her pained expression made the decision for him. He crouched down. Get on. I'll carry you. We can get an Uber to the hospital. Sophia stared at his broad back, then, with a blush, climbed on. Ethan stood effortlessly, as if she weighed nothing. You're really strong, she murmured. Ethan didn't reply, just walked steadily toward the mouth of the alley. Her perfume drifted to him, not an overpowering expensive brand, but a faint, clean floral scent, like wildflowers in a meadow. So, you just got back to Sterling City, and you don't have a place to stay? In the hospital corridor, Sophia sat on a bench, her ankle neatly wrapped, her eyes wide with curiosity. Ethan nodded. Just flew in today. Then be my bodyguard. Sophia proposed suddenly, her eyes sparkling. Name your price. I can prepay you for a full year. Ethan chuckled. You don't know the first thing about me, and you want to hire me as your bodyguard? You've saved my life twice. That's enough for me, Sophia said seriously. And my gut tells me you're not an ordinary man. Ethan considered it for a moment. He needed a job, a cover, while he looked into a few things. Protecting Sophia seemed like a decent option, better than being a bouncer or a driver. All right, I accept, he said finally, but no prepayment. A monthly salary is fine. Sophia clapped her hands in delight. Perfect. I'll have my people draw up a contract. She pulled out her phone, made a quick call, then turned back to Ethan. I had them prepare a penthouse for you in a luxury high-rise near Russo Tower. Let's go check it out now. An hour later, Ethan stood in a lavishly decorated top-floor apartment, a slight frown on his face. The place was over 2,000 square feet, filled with Italian furniture, and floor-to-ceiling windows offered a stunning panoramic view of Sterling City. Too conspicuous, he said. I need something more. Low profile. Sophia blinked in surprise. But this is one of the best apartment buildings in the city. That's why it's not suitable for a bodyguard, Ethan said, his eyes scanning the layout. I need a location that gives me a clear line of sight to your office and the places you frequent without drawing attention. This place is a landmark, and its security system has blind spots. He walked to the window and pointed to a mid-rise apartment building across the street. That building mid-level, better vantage point, and at least 3 viable escape routes. Sophia was dumbfounded. How do you know that building has escape routes? Ethan realized he'd said too much. Professional habit, he said smoothly. First thing I do in a new place is map the terrain. In the end, at Ethan's insistence, Sophia rented him a standard 3-bedroom apartment in the building he'd pointed out. When the movers delivered his sparse belongings, Sophia was once again surprised. This is all you have? She asked, looking at a single military-style duffel bag and a worn leather footlocker. Ethan shrugged. I travel light. Over the next few hours, Sophia watched in amazement as this mysterious man transformed an empty apartment into a secure and functional living space. He refused her offer of fancy furniture, instead picking out a few simple, practical pieces himself. What shocked her most was when he opened the old footlocker, revealing a set of professional-grade tools, and proceeded to personally upgrade the apartment's locks, windows, and security system. What did you really do? Sophia couldn't help but ask. No ordinary bodyguard knows how to do this. Ethan was busy calibrating a micro camera, his eyes not leaving his work. Spent some time in the service. As night fell, Sophia insisted on taking him to dinner to thank him. She wanted to go to a high-end restaurant, but Ethan suggested they just eat something simple in his new apartment. To her surprise, he cooked, whipping up 3 incredible dishes from the limited ingredients in the fridge. This is amazing. Sophia took a bite of stir-fried vegetables, looking at him in disbelief. Where did you learn to cook like this? All over the world, Ethan said, pouring her a glass of water. Better to eat than talk. Good for digestion. Sophia pouted, but obediently fell silent. She stole glances at the man eating quietly across from her, her mind buzzing with curiosity. He was an enigma, a puzzle where every piece she uncovered only revealed 100 more missing ones. Meanwhile, in the CEO's office at Thorne Industries, Victoria Thorne was listening to her best friend, Chloe Davis. I checked, Vic. There are no travel records for an Ethan Hayes for the past 3 years. No bank activity, no credit history. It's like he dropped off the face of the earth, Chloe said, pushing her glasses up her nose. That's not normal. Unless what? Victoria asked impatiently. Unless his identity was scrubbed and sealed by a government agency, Chloe said in a low voice. Vic, I don't think this guy is simple. Are you sure you want to do this? Victoria scoffed. Him? The guy who disappears for 3 years and comes back looking like a broke drifter? Chloe, you've been watching too many spy movies. She picked up a file from her desk. Forget him. Is the presentation for the Vance Holdings meeting ready for tomorrow? Chloe hesitated, then sighed. It's ready. But Vic, sometimes the simplest explanation is the right one. If a guy looks and acts like a ghost, and all his records have been wiped clean, then he must be a very impressive ghost. Victoria interrupted sarcastically. Stop wasting time. Ethan Hayes took the money and left. The matter is closed. Chloe shook her head and said no more. But in her mind, she had already decided. She was going to find out just who this mysterious Ethan Hayes really was. The morning sun streamed through the blinds, and Ethan's eyes snapped open. Years on the battlefield had conditioned him to wake at 0500 sharp, his internal clock more precise than a Swiss watch. He rolled out of bed, knocked out 50 push-ups and 50 sit-ups, and took a cold shower. The man in the mirror was a roadmap of violence, his lean muscle crisscrossed with scars, the puckered circles of bullet wounds, the long, thin lines of knife cuts, and the ragged starburst of shrapnel injury. Each mark was a story, a memory he preferred to keep locked away. Dressed, Ethan stood at his window, raising a pair of binoculars to survey Russo Tower across the street. Everything seemed quiet, but as trained eye caught the telltale signs of trouble. A few black vans parked discreetly near the building's rear service entrance, and several men in dark jackets loitering nearby. The Viper crew, Ethan muttered. He'd done his homework on the local underworld last night, and knew this up-and-coming gang had been harassing Russo Corp. He quickly dialed Sophia's number. Don't use the back entrance today. You got company. On the other end, Sophia's surprised voice came through. How did you know? Never mind. Stupid question. I'm already in the office. Came through the front. Is it the Vipers again? Looks like it, Ethan said, already shrugging on a jacket. I'll be there in 10. 7 minutes later, Ethan was positioned in the shadows near the rear of Russo Tower, observing. The number of Viper goons had grown to a dozen. They were brazenly blocking the delivery bay, harassing a couple of truck drivers. Ethan sighed, pulled a black face mask from his pocket, and walked straight toward them. Hey, we're closed for business today. Beat it. One of the thugs, a brute with a snake tattoo coiled around his neck, snarled at him. Ethan didn't break his stride. You have 3 seconds to leave. The Vipers stared for a second, then erupted in laughter. You hear that? This punk is giving us 3 seconds. Kid must have a death wish. Ethan began to count down. 3, 2, 1. Well, my ass. The tattooed man swung a clumsy fist. The next 2 minutes were a masterclass in controlled violence. The sickening thud of a fist meeting a jaw, the grunt of a knee striking a stomach, the wet crack of bone breaking. It was a symphony of pain. When the last goon was on his knees, clutching a dislocated shoulder, Ethan dusted off his hands. Tell your boss. He leaned in and whispered in the tattooed man's ear. Russo Corp is under my protection. Come back here again, and I'll pay him a personal visit. The man nodded in terror, then scrambled to his feet, gathering his broken crew and fleeing down the alley. Ethan removed his mask, circled to the front of the building, and swiped his keycard. The elevator took him to the top floor, where Sophia's assistant, Leo, was waiting. Mr. Hayes, Ms. Russo is expecting you, Leo said, his eyes shining with hero worship. The security feed from the back. We saw everything. Ethan gave a curt nod and entered the office. Sophia stood at the floor-to-ceiling window, turning to face him with a complex expression. You took on 12 members of the Viper crew by yourself? She asked directly. The cameras caught that. Ethan frowned. Your security system needs an upgrade. Too many blind spots. Sophia walked closer. That's not the point. The point is, who are you? No ordinary bodyguard has skills like that. Ethan avoided her searching gaze. I told you, I was in the military. Special forces? Something like that, he deflected. The Vipers won't give up easily. I need a full intel report on them. Sophia saw he wasn't going to say more and dropped it. I'll have our intelligence division put something together. By the way, there's a charity gala tonight. All the major players in Sterling City will be there. I need you to accompany me. Ethan's first instinct was to refuse, but considering the security risk, he nodded. At 7 o'clock, the ballroom of the Sterling Grand Hotel was a galaxy of glittering lights and expensive perfume. Sophia, in a stunning deep blue evening gown, entered on Ethan's arm. He wore a custom-tailored suit Sophia had provided. The perfect fit accentuated his powerful frame, drawing more than a few appreciative glances from the city's elite. Relax, Sophia whispered. You look like you're here to assassinate someone. A corner of Ethan's mouth twitched. Occupational hazard. They had just picked up glasses of champagne when a stir at the entrance announced a new arrival. Victoria Thorne, on the arm of a handsome young man, swept into the room, immediately drawing a crowd of sycophants. Caleb Vance, Sophia murmured with a slight curl of her lip. Heir to the Vance Holdings fortune. They've been getting very close to Thorne Industries. Rumor is it's a merger of marriage. Ethan's gaze rested on Victoria for a second before moving on, his expression unreadable. She was breathtaking in a scarlet gown, but he showed no reaction. You know her? Sophia, ever perceptive, caught the momentary pause. Ex-fiancée, Ethan replied, his tone flat. Sophia's eyes widened. Wait, you're that ex? The no-good, washed-up ex she sometimes mentions? Ethan raised an eyebrow. She mentions me? Not in a good way, Sophia said, looking a little embarrassed. But seeing you now, it's clear her assessment was lacking. Their conversation was interrupted by Caleb Vance, who steered Victoria toward them, a smug smile plastered on his face. Ms. Russo, a pleasure, he said, his eyes sliding over Sophia's form with undisguised lust. And this is... He looked at Ethan with disdain. My security, Ethan Hayes, Sophia answered coolly. Security? Caleb laughed, a little too loudly. An interesting choice of accessory for a gala, Ms. Russo. But then, he looked Ethan up and down. He certainly has the look of a thug. Victoria looked uncomfortable and tugged lightly on Caleb's sleeve. Caleb, don't. Ethan calmly sipped his champagne as if he hadn't heard the insult. But Caleb wasn't finished. Mr. Hayes, is it? I don't suppose you know much about wine. The host has a few bottles of 82 Lafite tonight. You should try some. A man like you probably won't get another chance to taste something so exquisite. Ethan set his glass down and smiled faintly. The 82 Lafite is certainly a fine vintage, but if you truly appreciated wine, you'd know the real treasure tonight is that bottle of 45 Mouton Rothschild. The preservation is perfect. The cork shows no signs of degradation. It must have been sourced from a professional cellar very recently. A hush fell over their small group. Caleb's face turned beet red. What are you talking about? There's no 45 Mouton here. Just then, the host of the party, an elderly, white-haired collector, walked over. My dear sir, what a magnificent eye. That bottle is from my private collection, brought tonight to share with a few true connoisseurs. How did you know? Ethan nodded politely. The coloration of a label is distinct, and the V for Victory design on the 1945 vintage is unmistakable to a collector. The old man's face lit up, and he seized Ethan's hand. Incredible. You must join me for a glass. Caleb looked as if he'd swallowed a lemon. Victoria stared at Ethan, a look of utter astonishment on her face, as if seeing him for the first time. Sophia beamed, taking Ethan's arm. We would be honored. But as they turned to follow the host, the ballroom lights suddenly went out, plunging the room into darkness. The blackness was immediately shattered by the sharp crack of a gunshot and a woman's scream. Get down! Ethan reacted instantly, shoving Sophia to the floor and shielding her with his body. From an inner pocket of his suit, He produced a compact pistol, a surprise to Sophia. More gunshots echoed through the dark as the crowd panicked. Ethan, protecting Sophia, let his eyes adjust. He quickly pinpointed the shooter, a masked man with a submachine gun bursting through a side door. "Stay here. Don't move," Ethan ordered in a low voice, then melted into the chaos like a predator. The next 15 seconds were a textbook demonstration of close-quarters combat. Ethan approached the gunman from behind, a single, precise hand strike shattering the man's wrist. As the gun fell, Ethan caught it with one hand while his other elbow slammed into the back of the gunman's neck. The man collapsed before he even knew what hit him. "Security, over here," Ethan yelled, handing the unconscious gunman over to the hotel guards who came running. The lights flickered back on, revealing a scene of chaos. Sophia crawled out from under a table, pale but composed. Victoria was being protected by Caleb, or rather, Caleb was plastered on top of her, trembling, while she tried to push him off in disgust. Ethan moved quickly back to Sophia's side. "Are you hurt?" Sophia shook her head, then her eyes widened. "Your arm is bleeding." Ethan glanced down. A bullet had grazed his left arm, soaking his shirt sleeve in blood. "It's just a scratch." Victoria finally shoved Caleb off and straightened her disheveled gown. Her gaze fell on Ethan's wound, then shifted to the still quaking Caleb. A flash of disappointment, and was that regret, crossed her face. Are you okay?" she asked Ethan hesitantly. He just nodded, saying nothing. The police and paramedics arrived quickly. As they were giving their statements, Sophia clutched Ethan's uninjured hand. "Thank you. If it weren't for you." "Just doing my job," he replied, but his eyes had softened. Across the room, Victoria watched them, a strange, unfamiliar emotion churning in her gut. The man she had dismissed as ordinary had just displayed a level of courage, calm, and culture that surpassed every so-called elite she knew. Wine expert, deadly fighter, unshakable in a crisis. Was this really the Ethan she knew? Worse, when danger struck, Caleb's cowardice was a pathetic foil to Ethan's heroism. One had cowered, the other had protected. "Vic, let's get out of here. This place is dangerous," Caleb urged, pulling at her arm. Victoria yanked her arm away. "You go. I'm staying to cooperate with the police." She looked toward Ethan again, but he and Sophia were gone. A profound sense of loss washed over her. She was beginning to realize she might have just made the biggest mistake of her life. At 3 a.m, the lights in Ethan's apartment were still on. On his computer screen was Sophia Russo's complete medical file, which he had pulled from Sterling City General's database using methods they would never detect. As her bodyguard, knowing his client's health status was a necessary precaution. At least, that's what he told himself. But when he saw the diagnosis, Hayman's syndrome, his brow furrowed. It was a rare, degenerative neurological disorder that caused progressive muscle atrophy, eventually impacting respiratory and cardiac functions. There was no known cure, only treatments to slow its progression. Ethan's fingers flew across the keyboard. Sophia's file showed the symptoms had already begun: occasional muscle weakness, unexplained fatigue. Based on the projected course of the disease, she would be in a wheelchair within 5 years, and her life would be at risk within 10. No wonder she was so desperate for a bodyguard, Ethan murmured. She was preparing for a future where she couldn't protect herself. He closed the laptop and walked to the window, staring at the silhouette of Russo Tower. The building gleamed in the moonlight, cold and beautiful, much like Sophia's public persona. But now he knew that beneath the strong facade was a woman fighting a battle against her own body. A decision formed in his mind. The next morning, Sophia walked into her office to find an elegant sandalwood box on her desk. Gilded letters spelled out her name. "What's this?" she asked her assistant, Leo. "No idea. The front desk sent it up. Said it was a special delivery." Sophia opened the box. Inside was a vial of deep blue liquid and a handwritten card. The script was strong and steady. 110 milliliters dose before bed. It will help with the fatigue. For further treatment, come alone to the following address tonight at 8 p.m. Gee, on the back was an address in a quiet suburb. Sophia's fingers trembled. Her condition was a closely guarded secret, known only to her father and her specialist. Who is G? How did they know? And what was in this vial? Her first instinct was to call Ethan, but something held her back. If G could get this to her desk so easily, they were clearly resourceful. Raising the alarm might not be wise. She uncapped the vial and sniffed. It had a faint, herbal scent, pleasant and calming. After a long moment of hesitation, she decided she would take the first dose, but she had no intention of going to the mysterious address. It was too risky. By the afternoon, however, her symptoms flared up. The fingers on her right hand began to tremble uncontrollably, making it impossible to even sign a document. Her doctor had warned her these episodes would become more frequent. Damn it, Sophia cursed, staring at her disobedient hand. Her decision was made. At 7:30 p.m., she told Ethan he didn't need to drive her home. She was meeting an old friend. He nodded, asking no questions, only reminding her to be safe. An hour later, her car was parked in front of an unassuming two-story building on a quiet suburban street. She took a deep breath, clutched the pepper spray in her purse, and walked to the door. Before she could knock, the door swung open. A figure in a white lab coat and a silver mask stood in the entryway. "Ms. Russo, please come in." The voice was digitally altered, sounding mechanical and cold. Sophia stood her ground. "Who are you? What does G stand for? How do you know about my condition?" "G for ghost," the masked figure said, stepping aside. "You can call me the ghost doctor. As for your condition, I have my sources. What's important is that I can help you. Why should I trust you?" The ghost doctor, Ethan, smiling grimly behind a mask, replied, "Because of the tremor in your right hand right now, and because of the contract you were unable to finish signing this morning." That hit home. The contract was a private matter. No one outside her office could have known. She stepped inside. The building was a state-of-the-art medical clinic, filled with equipment so advanced that even she recognized some of it. "Lie down," the ghost doctor said, gesturing to a treatment table. "The first session is a simple assessment." After a moment's hesitation, she complied. As his hands gently took her wrist to check her pulse, a strange sense of familiarity washed over her. The warmth of his hands, the way they felt. She felt it somewhere before. "Relax," he said. His voice was still mechanical, but his movements were surprisingly gentle as he attached several electrode patches to her head and neck. "What is this?" "Neurostimulation, combined with a proprietary drug. It will slow the degradation of your neurons." For the next half hour, a faint, tingling current passed through her body. It wasn't unpleasant. The ghost doctor adjusted the equipment with a practiced, reassuring skill. "That's all for today," he said when it was over, handing her another small vial. "Continue taking this. Come back in 3 days." Sophia sat up. The tremor in her hand was gone. She felt a lightness she hadn't experienced in months. "This is incredible. It's a temporary reprieve," the ghost doctor said calmly. "A full cure will require long-term treatment. And remember, tell no one you come here, not even the people you trust most." Sophia nodded, then asked, "Why are you helping me? What's your fee?" Behind the mask, Ethan was silent for a moment. "Someone wants you to be healthy. As for payment, you'll know when the time is right." After she left, Ethan removed the mask and let out a long breath. Playing the ghost doctor was a risk, but seeing the look of hope on Sophia's face made it worth it. For the next 2 weeks, Sophia secretly visited the clinic every 3 days. With each treatment, her symptoms lessened and her energy returned. Her curiosity about the mysterious doctor grew, but every attempt to learn his identity was deftly deflected. Meanwhile, Ethan continued his duties as her bodyguard, privately pleased to see her looking healthier and more vibrant each day. "You seem to have a lot of energy lately," he remarked casually during a lunch break. Sophia's eyes lit up. "Do I? Must be sleeping better." She didn't mention the ghost doctor, but couldn't help but share her good mood. "By the way, there's a business dinner tonight. Will you come with me?" Just as Ethan was about to reply, his phone buzzed. It was an encrypted message. "Thorn Industries Project Crisis. Consultation required. Chloe Davis." He frowned slightly. Chloe was Victoria's best friend. Why would she contact him? Unless... Is something wrong? Sophia noticed his change in expression. "Nothing." "Spam text," Ethan said, pocketing his phone. "What time is the dinner?" 7, at the Grand Hotel. "I'll be there," he said, his mind already calculating how to fit in a meeting with Chloe. At 4 p.m., Ethan entered a top-floor office in Sterling City's financial district. Chloe Davis was waiting, looking relieved and surprised. You actually came? I never thought the Phantom would agree to a face-to-face consultation. Ethan smiled faintly. I make exceptions. The Phantom was his alias in the world of corporate espionage. For years, he'd used this identity to solve crises for multinational corporations, charging exorbitant fees for miraculous results. Chloe had clearly found his contact information through a back channel, but she had no idea the Phantom was also Ethan Hayes. What's the problem at Thorn? He asked, getting straight to the point. Chloe pulled up a presentation. Our joint venture with Southeast Asia's GT Group is in trouble. They're demanding we renegotiate or they'll pull their funding. We've already sunk 30% of our liquid capital into this project. If it fails... Ethan scanned the documents, his mind processing the data like a supercomputer. 5 minutes later, he pointed out 3 things. First, GT Group's port project in Malaysia just had its funding cut. They're desperate for cash. Second, their lead negotiator was recommended by Caleb Vance. Third, your contract has a small but fatal loophole in the force majeure clause. Chloe's eyes widened. How? That information is highly classified. Ethan didn't explain. The solution is simple. Use their cash flow problem as leverage to counterpressure them. Bypass the negotiating team and contact GT's chairman directly, and line up an alternative partner. I have 3 options for you. He slid a flash drive across the table. Chloe took it, incredulous. It's that simple. Business strategy is never complicated. People are, Ethan said, standing up. My fee goes to the usual account. And remember, don't tell Victoria it was me. Why not? You two know each other. Ethan gave her a meaningful look. More than you know. 3 days later, Thorn Industries had saved the project, securing even better terms. At a small celebration, Victoria raised a toast to her team and to the anonymous business consultant who saved us. Chloe, you have to tell me who the Phantom is, Victoria pressed her friend afterward. He solved a 3-month-long problem in 3 hours. Chloe hesitated. He asked me to keep it confidential. Do I know him? Yes. Victoria's curiosity piqued. Who in Sterling City is that brilliant? Professor Chun? CEO Lee from Voyager Group. Chloe shook her head, finally relenting under Victoria's persistence. It was Ethan Hayes. The wine glass nearly slipped from Victoria's hand. Who? Your ex-fiancé, Ethan Hayes, Chloe sighed. He's the legendary Phantom. Over the past 5 years, he saved at least 20 multinational companies from ruin. His consultation fee starts at $50,000 an hour. Victoria's face went pale, as if she'd been struck. The man she called a drifter and washed up was a legendary corporate fixer? How is that possible? Are you sure? 100%. Chloe showed her a blurry photo on her phone, a side profile of Ethan at an international business summit. This is the only public photo of him I could find. He used a different name, but it's him. Victoria stared at the picture, her heart hammering. The Ethan in the photo wore a bespoke suit, speaking confidently with several world-renowned tycoons. He looked nothing like the ordinary man she dismissed in her lobby. Why? Victoria's voice shook. Why didn't he ever tell me? Chloe looked at her pointedly. Maybe he was waiting for someone who would love him for who he is, not for what he has. The word stabbed into Victoria's heart. She remembered the arrogant way she'd offered him $5 million. She remembered saying, we don't live in the same world anymore. She remembered every ounce of her scorn. And now the truth was out. They didn't live in the same world, because his was infinitely larger and more complex than she had ever imagined. I need to see him, Victoria said suddenly. Arrange it, Chloe. He said he doesn't want to see you. Then tell him, Victoria's eyes flashed with a stubborn light, that I'm willing to pay $5 million for a conversation, since he seems to enjoy playing these identity games. That night, Sophia was back at the ghost doctor's clinic. After her treatment, she suddenly grabbed his wrist. Wait, I have a question. Behind a mask, Ethan froze. What is it? Have we met somewhere before? Sophia stared into the eye holes of the mask. The feel of your hands, your scent. It's familiar. Ethan's heart skipped a beat. He'd deliberately worn a different cologne, but Sophia's senses were sharper than he'd anticipated. You're mistaken, he said curtly, pulling his hand away. I'll text you about your next appointment. Sophia looked like she wanted to say more, but she nodded and left. Ethan removed the mask, letting out a long breath. This double life was getting more dangerous, but seeing Sophia's health improve with every visit, he couldn't stop. His phone buzzed. It was a message from Chloe. Victoria wants to see you. Says she'll pay $5 million for a conversation. Reply? Ethan looked at the message, a bitter smile on his lips. The irony was suffocating. She wanted to use his breakup fee to buy a meeting with him. He typed back a single word. No. Some mistakes couldn't be fixed with money. Some chances, once lost, were gone forever. At least, that's what he told himself. Ethan stood on the observation deck of Sterling City's tallest tower, the wind whipping past his face. From here, he could see the entire city, and no one could approach him undetected. He checked his watch. 2:15 a.m. 5 minutes until the rendezvous. He didn't need to turn and know she had arrived. That unique blend of expensive perfume and cordite was unmistakable. There was only one person in the world who smelled like that. Elena Vogt, the queen of the International Assassins Guild, Nightfall. You're still so punctual, Ghost. A sultry, dangerous voice purred from behind him. Ethan turned slowly. A tall woman with fiery red hair leaned against the railing, the wind catching the strands like leaping flames. She wore skin-tight black leather, a pair of custom pistols holstered at her hips. Her emerald eyes glinted in the dark. Elena, Ethan acknowledged. Long time no see. 3 years, 2 months, and 4 days, Elena said precisely, a half-smile playing on her red lips. You vanished after that Berlin job. I looked for you all over the globe. Ethan ignored the bait. What is Nightfall doing in Sterling City? This isn't your territory. Elena moved toward him with a dancer's grace, closing the distance until he could feel her breath. Business, my love. Someone's paying a fortune for us to find something in this city. What's so important it brings you here, personally? Now that Elena's fingers traced a line down his chest is a trade secret. But with you here, things just got a lot more interesting. Ethan caught her wrist. Don't cause trouble in this city, Elena. This is my home turf now. Oh, she raised an eyebrow. Has the great Ghost finally put down roots? I seem to recall you saying people like us are destined to drift forever. People change. They certainly do. Elena leaned in, whispering in his ear. Like you playing bodyguard, Anne. Doctor? It's adorable. Ethan's pupils contracted. She knew about Sophia. She might even know about the ghost doctor. Nightfall had been digging into his life. Stay away from her. Ethan's voice dropped, becoming a blade of ice. Elena took a step back, hand over her heart in mock surprise. Whoa, so the rumors are true. Ethan Hayes finally grew a heart? For some frail little heiress. She's not part of this. Of course not. Elena's smile turned predatory. But if you get in the way of my mission, I wouldn't mind making her collateral damage. In a flash, Ethan's hand was around her throat, pinning her against the glass railing. 300 meters of open air lay below. Listen to me, he growled, his voice low and lethal. You touch one hair on her head, and I will erase Nightfall from this world. Starting with you. Elena didn't struggle. Instead, she smiled. Now, this is the ghost I know. She rasped, easy, old friend. I didn't come here to be your enemy. Ethan slowly released her. Elena rubbed her neck and pulled a silver flash drive from her pocket, tossing it to him. Client profile. I thought you might be interested. Ethan caught it. Why are you helping me? Who said I'm helping you? Elena winked. Maybe I just want to watch the show. And a friendly warning. Nightfall isn't the only player in town. Sterling City is about to get very crowded, Ghost. With that, she vaulted backward over the railing, disappearing into the shadows below, as if she'd never been there. Ethan looked at the flash drive in his hand, his brow furrowed. Whatever could draw Nightfall and other players to Sterling City was big, and he needed to find out if it posed a threat to Sophia. Sophia's condition had improved dramatically under the ghost doctor's care. The muscle weakness was almost gone, and her energy levels were higher than they'd been in years. Tonight was her 5th visit to the clinic, her heart filled with gratitude, curiosity, and a strange, unidentifiable emotion. Every time he treated her, the feel of his steady hands, the reassuring presence, it all reminded her of Ethan. The thought was absurd. How could it be him? He was just a bodyguard, albeit a very special one. We're here, Ms. Russo, her driver's voice said, snapping her out of her thoughts. She entered the clinic and found it arranged differently. A small table with a tea set and pastries stood beside the treatment bed. "No treatment today?" she asked. The ghost doctor emerged from an inner room, still masked. "I want to talk before we begin." His voice was still a mechanical drone, but his tone was softer. She noticed he was wearing thinner, medical-grade latex gloves today. "About what?" "How you're feeling. Your symptoms." She reported her progress. He listened intently, then did something unexpected. He removed his right glove and placed the back of his hand against her forehead. In that instant, Sophia was almost certain. The touch, the warmth, even the calluses on his palm, it was identical to Ethan's. Her heart began to race. "Temperature is normal," he said, quickly pulling his hand back and re-gloving it. "Let's try a new therapy today." The session was longer and more intensive than before. When it was over, she felt an unprecedented sense of well-being. "2 more treatments, and you should be fully cured," the ghost doctor said, cleaning his instruments. "Hayman's syndrome isn't invincible. Modern medicine just hasn't found the right key." Sophia sat up and said, "Ethan Hayes." The ghost doctor's movements didn't falter. "Who?" "Nothing," she said, watching his reaction. "Just a name that popped into my head." "Your bodyguard?" "How did you know he's my bodyguard?" she asked immediately. Behind a mask, Ethan cursed himself for the slip. He recovered quickly. "You mentioned him last time. Said you had a very dedicated bodyguard." Sophia nodded thoughtfully, unsure if she believed him. She decided to let it go, for now. "Thank you," she said sincerely. "Whoever you are, you've given me a second chance at life." The ghost doctor was silent for a moment. "Don't thank me. Someone cares about you very much. They didn't want to see you defeated by this." "Who?" "You'll know when the time is right." He handed her a new vial. "This one is pink. Once in the morning, once at night." As she took it, she suddenly grabbed his wrist. "Can I see your face?" "Just once." Ethan froze. After a long moment, he slowly shook his head. "No." "Why not?" "Some lines, once crossed, can't be uncrossed." His voice came through the modulator, cold but tinged with a strange sadness. "This is better for everyone." Sophia let go, a flash of disappointment in her eyes. But she quickly rallied. "Fine. I respect your choice. But," she winked playfully, "I bet you're better looking than Ethan." Ethan almost laughed out loud, but the modulator hid his reaction. "You should go, Ms. Russo. Until next time." After she left, Ethan removed his mask, exhaling slowly. The charade was getting riskier. Sophia was close to the truth, and he was starting to look forward to these bi-weekly meetings. That was dangerous. For both of them. His phone buzzed. A text from Sophia. "Are you free tomorrow night? I'd like to take you to dinner. Just the two of us." Ethan stared at the message for a long time. As a bodyguard, he should maintain professional distance. As the ghost doctor, he should stay far away. But as a man, he found he couldn't say no. "I'm free," he typed back. The next evening, Ethan arrived at the restaurant Sophia had chosen. It was a private French place on the top floor of a skyscraper. Sophia was already there, wearing a stunning silver-gray dress that shimmered in the candlelight. "You look beautiful," Ethan said sincerely. Sophia smiled. "Thank you. You look very handsome yourself." She gestured for the waiter to begin service. "I booked the entire restaurant. It's just us tonight." Ethan raised an eyebrow. "Special occasion?" "Many," she said, raising her wine glass. "First, to thank you for your protection. The Viper crew hasn't bothered us since you arrived. Business has been smooth." He clinked his glass against hers. "It's my job." "Second," Sophia took a deep breath, as if steeling herself. "I want to tell you something. I have an illness, a rare neurological disease." Ethan feigned surprise. "Is it serious?" "It was. But I found an incredible doctor who's curing me," she said, her eyes shining. "And it made me realize something. Life is too short to waste on hesitation and secrets." The main course arrived, but neither of them touched it. "Ethan," Sophia continued, "I had you investigated." That made him put down his fork. "Oh, on the surface, your file is simple. Army veteran, some private security work. Nothing special," she said, looking him straight in the eye. "But your records only start 3 years ago. Before that, it's a blank slate. As if it was deliberately erased." Ethan's face was unreadable. "Some service records are classified." "I figured," she nodded. But none of that matters. What I'm trying to say is, she reached across the table and took his hand. I'm falling for you. Not as a client appreciating her bodyguard, but as a woman falling for a man. Ethan was so taken aback by her directness, he didn't know how to respond. I know it's sudden, she went on, her cheeks flushed, but I don't want to live with regrets. If you'll have me, I'll offer the entire Russo family fortune as my dowry. The restaurant was so quiet he could hear the candle flame flicker. Ethan looked at the brave, beautiful woman before him, a warmth spreading through his chest. But he knew his dark, dangerous past was no place for the heiress of a trillion-dollar empire. Sophia, he said softly, using her first name for the first time. I'm honored, but I can't accept. Her face fell. Is it me? Am I not good enough? It's the opposite, Ethan said with a sad smile. You're too good to be tied to someone like me. My past, it's complicated and dangerous. One day, I'll tell you everything, and you'll understand why we can't be together. Sophia looked up, her expression stubborn. There's no such thing as can't. I can wait. I'll wait until the day you're ready to tell me everything. Ethan sighed, seeing the determination in her eyes. Let's eat. The food is getting cold. The rest of the dinner was a bit awkward, but Sophia seemed determined to salvage it, telling him funny stories about her work and travels. Ethan was grateful for her tact and played along. As they were leaving, Sophia suddenly stood on her toes and pressed a soft kiss to his cheek. Remember, my offer stands. $1 trillion fortune in my heart. They're both waiting for you. Ethan stood frozen, one hand touching his cheek where her warmth lingered, long after her car had pulled away into the night. Victoria Thorne stood at her office window, the wine in her glass tasteless. It had been 3 days since Chloe told her about the Phantom. She couldn't shake it, and now a new report from her private investigator had just arrived. Photos of Ethan and Sophia at dinner, talking intimately, and a final shot of Sophia kissing him. Sophia Russo, Victoria hissed. Russo Corp had always been her rival, and now her ex-fiancé was with their heir? It was a double humiliation. She picked up the phone. I want everything you can find on Ethan Hayes. Everything, especially where he was and what he did 3 years ago. After hanging up, she looked at her reflection. The perfect makeup, the designer suit, the priceless jewelry. She had everything a woman could want, so why did she feel so empty? Who was Ethan Hayes? A soldier? A corporate genius? Something more? And why would a woman as proud as Sophia Russo fall for him so completely? Victoria was determined to find out. If Ethan was truly that extraordinary, she had made a colossal, unforgivable mistake. And Victoria Thorne did not accept mistakes. She turned to her computer and began searching for any scrap of information on the Phantom. A tiny, overlooked clue caught her eye, a 5-year-old crisis report from an international security firm that mentioned a consultant codenamed Ghost. Security firm? Bodyguard? Assassin? A ridiculous thought flashed through her mind. No, impossible. But the more she thought about it, his fighting skills, his preternatural awareness of danger, those eyes that saw right through you, the more it started to make a terrifying kind of sense. How many more secrets are you hiding, Ethan Hayes? Victoria whispered, her fingers unconsciously tracing the spot on her hand where her engagement ring used to be. Outside, the lights of Sterling City glittered like a fallen constellation. And beneath the glamorous surface, a storm was brewing. Assassins, corporate conspiracies, and tangled hearts, all converging on one enigmatic man. At 3:17 a.m., the doorbell of Ethan's apartment rang. No one should be visiting at this hour. Ethan was awake instantly, his hand already wrapped around the grip of the pistol under his pillow. He moved silently to the door and looked through the peephole. Chloe Davis, Victoria's best friend, was standing in the hallway, her face pale, repeatedly pressing the bell. Frowning, Ethan quickly opened the door and pulled her inside. She was trembling, her eyes red from crying. What happened? He asked in a low voice, scanning the hallway for tales. Victoria's been kidnapped. Chloe's voice was a ragged whisper. From the company garage, 2 hours ago. The kidnappers just contacted her father. They want Thorne Industries' new quantum encryption technology, or else. Her voice broke. Ethan's gaze sharpened to a razor's edge. Tell me everything. Chloe took a shaky breath. The surveillance footage shows it was the Viper crew, but someone else has to be pulling the strings. They're giving us 72 hours to hand over the tech. Or they'll kill her. She grabbed his arm. The police are involved, but the kidnappers threaten to kill her instantly if they see any cops. Her father is terrified. Where's Caleb Vance? Ethan asked suddenly. What? Chloe looked startled. He said he's out of town on business, but he's rushing back. Why do you ask? Ethan didn't answer. He turned and went into his bedroom, emerging moments later in black tactical gear, his waist bristling with equipment. You're going after her? Chloe's eyes widened. By yourself. Ethan checked the magazine of his pistol. Give me every detail of the abduction. Chloe quickly relayed what she knew. Ethan listened, then dialed a number on his phone. It's me. Emergency protocol. I need everything you have on the Viper crew and Caleb Vance's recent activities. Yes, now. He hung up and turned to Chloe. Go home. Tell Mr. Thorne to play along with their demands. Buy me time, but you can't possibly. That's not your concern. Ethan's tone was final. And remember, don't tell anyone you were here, especially not the police. Chloe looked like she wanted to argue, but she withered under his icy gaze and nodded. After she left, Ethan finished gearing up. He opened his door to leave and froze. Sophia Russo was standing there, her hand raised as if to knock. Their eyes met. Sophia's gaze traveled from his face down to his combat gear, and a look of understanding dawned. You're going to save her, she stated. It wasn't a question. Ethan was silent for a moment, then nodded. I heard what Chloe said, Sophia said, stepping into the apartment and closing the door behind her. I saw her in the lobby. She looked frantic, so I followed her up. Ethan sighed. You shouldn't be involved in this. It's too late. I'm already involved, Sophia said, looking him straight in the eye. The moment you became my bodyguard, I became part of your world, whatever that world is. He looked at her, at the unwavering resolve in her eyes, and knew he couldn't hide the truth anymore. If this mission went wrong, she deserved to know who he really was. Sit down, he said softly. There are some things you should know. Sophia sat on the couch, her hands clasped tightly. Ethan took a seat across from her. I'm not just a bodyguard, and I'm more than the phantom, he began, his voice low and steady. 3 years ago, I left Sterling City on a mission. Before that, I was a sniper in the Special Forces. And after that, I became an assassin. Sophia's breath hitched, but she didn't interrupt. In the underworld, they call me the Ghost, Ethan said with a bitter smile. Ironically, most of the people I killed deserved it. Drug lords, arms dealers, terrorists. But my hands are still covered in blood. He looked up, meeting her gaze. This is why I can't accept your feelings. You deserve someone better, not a killer. The room fell silent. Ethan braced himself for the revulsion, the fear, the inevitable retreat. But Sophia's reaction stunned him. So, that's your secret? She asked softly, a faint smile on her lips. You thought this would scare me away? Ethan was speechless. You're not. Afraid. Afraid? Sophia laughed. Ethan, how do you think Russo Corp got its start? My father used gray area tactics to build his empire. I've known my whole life that the world isn't black and white. She stood and walked over to him. What matters is why you kill, not that you've killed. He stared at her shocked. For years, he'd carried this burden, believing its revelation would destroy any chance he had at normal life. And this woman, she accepted it without hesitation. Besides, Sophia continued, if you were truly a cold-blooded killer, you wouldn't be risking your life right now to save the woman who broke your heart. Ethan shook his head. This isn't about feelings. Victoria isn't innocent. She doesn't deserve this. And that, Sophia said softly, is why I trust you. Now, what do you need from me? Just as Ethan was about to refuse her help, a lazy voice drifted from the balcony. Well, isn't this a touching moment? Did I interrupt? They both spun around. Elena Voke was perched on the balcony railing, her red hair dancing in the night wind, a silver dagger glinting in her hand. Elena, Ethan instantly shifted into a combat stance, pulling Sophia behind him. What are you doing here? Relax, Ghost, Elena said, leaping gracefully into the living room. I'm here to help. She shot Sophia a wink. Hi, pretty lady. I'm your boyfriend's work wife. Sophia frowned. What? Don't listen to her, Ethan said coldly. Elena is the head of Nightfall, a professional assassin. Former head, Elena corrected. Freelancer now. And by the way, I know where they're holding Victoria. Ethan's eyes narrowed. How? Because this whole kidnapping is fascinating. Elena purred, pacing the room like a cat. On the surface, it's the Viper crew. In reality, it was orchestrated by Caleb Vance. And behind him is the Shadow Syndicate. Ethan's expression turned grim. The Shadow Syndicate was a global criminal empire, dealing in everything from arms to human trafficking. That makes sense, he muttered. Thorne's quantum encryption tech would give them a completely secure global communication network. Elena nodded. And from what I hear, Caleb has no intention of letting Victoria walk away from this. Once he has the tech, he's going to... She drew a finger across her throat. Sophia gasped. We have to save her. We? Ethan shook his head. It's too dangerous. You two are staying here. I'm going alone. No, Sophia said firmly. I can provide support. Russo Corp has a private security team with top-tier equipment. Elena chuckled. The princess wants to play spy? How cute. Enough, Ethan cut them off. Time is short. Elena, if you're really here to help, give me the location and guard deployment. Elena tossed him a flash drive. It's all in there. The Viper's main hideout, guard patrols, and Victoria's exact location. By the way, there are 12 of them, all heavily armed. Ethan plugged the drive into his laptop, quickly scanning the data. A moment later, he looked up at the two women. All right, listen up. Here's the plan. The abandoned chemical plant sat on the outskirts of Sterling City, a decaying monument to forgotten industry. It had once been the Viper Crew's drug lab before a police raid turned it into their secret headquarters. Victoria was tied to a metal chair, her mouth sealed with duct tape. Her designer suit was torn and filthy, a dark bruise blooming on her cheek, but her eyes were still defiant. TSK, TSK, the high and mighty Ms. Thorne still has some fight in her. The gang's leader, a man known as Cobra, sneered, crouching in front of her. Let's see how tough you are when Mr. Vance gets here. Victoria's eyes widened in shock. Caleb? He was behind us. Surprised? Cobra laughed. You didn't really think he was into you, did you? Huh. He just needed a way to get close to Thorne Industries. Victoria struggled against her bonds, muffled sounds of rage escaping her lips. Want to talk? Cobra ripped the tape from her mouth. Caleb Vance is a dead man. Victoria spat. My father will destroy all of you. Cobra roared with laughter. Your father? He's a little busy preparing that tech for us right now. In 72 hours, once we have what we want you. He made a slitting motion across his throat. Victoria's face went pale, but she forced herself to remain calm, scanning the room for any possible escape. 6 armed men were inside, with more guarding the entrance. Even if she got free, she'd never make it out. Suddenly, the lights in the plant flickered and died, plunging the space into absolute darkness. What the hell? Cobra yelled. Check the generator. A few of his men fumbled for flashlights and ran toward the power room. A soft thud echoed in the dark, and the first man went down silently. Then a second, and a third. We're under attack. Cobra screamed, firing his pistol wildly into the blackness. Victoria felt someone move toward her. She opened her mouth to scream, but a warm hand covered it. Don't make a sound. It's me. A familiar voice whispered in her ear. Ethan? She could hardly believe it. In the dark, she felt her ropes being cut, and then a pair of strong arms helped her to her feet. Stay close. Don't look back. Ethan's voice was calm and steady. Suddenly, the plant was flooded with light. Victoria squinted and saw Caleb Vance standing in the entrance, flanked by a team of heavily armed foreign mercenaries. I knew you'd come, Ethan, Caleb sneered. The great ghost couldn't resist playing the hero, could he? Ethan pushed Victoria behind him. Caleb Vance. Or should I call you a dog of the Shadow Syndicate? Caleb's face tightened. You know too much. No matter. You're all going to die here tonight. He waved a hand. Kill them. The mercenaries raised their rifles, but in that split second, the glass skylights overhead shattered. Smoke grenades rained down, instantly filling the factory with a thick, choking fog, followed by the sound of suppressed gunshots and screams of pain. In the chaos, Ethan shoved Victoria behind a concrete pillar. Stay here. The next few minutes were a living nightmare. All she could hear were gunshots, grunts of pain, and bodies hitting the floor. Bullets slammed into their cover, showering them with concrete dust. Then silence. As the smoke cleared, Victoria saw the floor littered with the bodies of the Vipers and the mercenaries. Caleb was gone. And Ethan? Her heart stopped. Ethan was on one knee in the center of the room, his chest soaked in blood, his face ashen. No! Victoria ran to him, catching him as he swayed. Hang on, I'll call an ambulance. Ethan shook his head weakly. Have to. Get out of here. Not safe. Just then, the main doors burst open. Sophia rushed in with a team of armed security, followed by the red-haired woman, Elena. Ethan. Sophia's face went white when she saw him. She ran to his side, assessing the wound. Medic. Now. Elena did a quick sweep of the area. Caleb's gone. The little rat slipped away. Victoria stared at the two women, bewildered. She knew Sophia, but who was the redhead? And why did they both seem so close to Ethan? You too. No time to explain, Sophia said, expertly applying pressure to Ethan's wound. We need to get him to a hospital. Elena, can you handle this? Of course. Cleanup is my specialty, Elena said, winking at Victoria. Hey, princess, you owe me one. Before Victoria could process what was happening, Sophia was pulling her along, helping to get Ethan onto a stretcher. Looking at his pale face and the blood spreading across his chest, her heart clenched with a pain so sharp it stole her breath. The man she had scorned, the man she had thrown away, was now dying to save her. The ambulance screamed through the night. Victoria held Ethan's cold hand, tears finally streaming down her face. Hang on, please, she whispered. I have so much I need to tell you. On his other side, Sophia held his other hand, her own eyes filled with tears. For that moment, they were not rivals, just two women terrified of losing the same man. And Ethan, drifting in and out of consciousness, heard their voices as if from a great distance, but couldn't respond. Darkness was closing in, and his last thought was that the Shadow Syndicate was finally out in the open. The real fight had just begun. Outside the ICU at Sterling City General, Victoria Thorne sat on a cold plastic chair, her hands clenched so tightly her nails dug into her palms. 6 hours. The light above the operating room door was still on. Her clothes were stained with Ethan's blood, dried to a dark, accusing brown. The sound of footsteps echoed down the hall. Sophia and Elena approached, flanked by the hospital's top administrators. Victoria looked up, her red-rimmed eyes a storm of complex emotions. How is he? Sophia asked, her voice trembling. Still in surgery, Victoria rasped. The bullet missed his heart by 2 centimeters. He lost a lot of blood. Elena scoffed. All because of you. If Ghost hadn't gone to save you, he'd be fine right now. Elena. Sophia snapped. This isn't the time. Victoria didn't argue. She lowered her head, her shoulders shaking. It was her fault. The man she deemed worthless was now fighting for his life because of her. I've flown in the best surgeon in the country, Sophia said, sitting beside her. He's going to be okay. Victoria looked at her rival. Sophia's eyes were just as swollen, but she was forcing herself to be strong. She was wearing an oversized, ill-fitting jacket, stained and dusty, yet she still carried herself with an innate grace. What are you to him? Victoria had to ask. Sophia met her gaze directly. I love him. The 3 words were a knife to Victoria's heart. She opened her mouth, but no sound came out. Wow. Straight to the point, Elena said, leaning against the wall. Saves time. So, Ms. Thorne, what about you? What are your feelings for the man you try to pay off with $5 million? Victoria's face drained of color. She couldn't believe they knew. Ethan must hate her so much to have told them. He never said a bad word about you, Sophia said, as if reading her mind. It was Chloe who told us. Just then, the operating room light went out. All 3 women shot to their feet, their eyes locked on the door. The surgeon emerged, exhausted but smiling. The surgery was a success. The bullet is out. Your friend has an incredible constitution. He's lost a lot of blood, but he's stable and out of immediate danger. Victoria's legs gave out, and she would have collapsed if Sophia hadn't caught her. When can we see him? Elena asked. Tomorrow. He'll be in the ICU for observation, the doctor said, wisely choosing not to question the dynamic between the 3 stunning women. You should all get some rest. One person can stay on watch. I'll stay, they said in unison, then exchanged glances. They decided to take shifts. Sophia had to deal with a corporate crisis and left first. Elena had cleanup to do. Victoria took the first watch. Late that night, Victoria stood outside the ICU, looking through the glass at Ethan. He was a still figure in a sea of tubes and monitors, his face so pale it was almost translucent. Only the steady rhythm on the heart monitor proved he was still alive. She pressed her fingertips to the cold glass, as if she could touch him. Memories flooded back. The quiet boy in college who always had her back, the extra umbrella on a rainy day, the hot coffee on her desk during all-nighters, the way he'd been the first to stand up for her. And she had repaid him with scorn, betrayal, and a $5 million insult. Tears blurred her vision. She wiped them away and decided to find the doctor. As she passed the nurse's station, she overheard two of them whispering. The scars on that patient are terrifying. I know. The one on his back looks like it was from a machete, and those round ones on his abdomen, definitely gunshot wounds. What kind of life has he lived? Victoria's heart seized. All this time, she thought he was just an ordinary man. Those scars, where did they come from? The next morning, Ethan was moved to a private room. He was recovering at an astonishing rate. Victoria was the first to visit. She tiptoed to his bedside, afraid to wake him. She carefully pulled back the sheet, needing to see what the nurses had talked about. She gasped. His upper body was a canvas of violence. Long knife cuts, puckered bullet holes, the ragged pattern of a shrapnel wound. And the newest addition, the fresh bandage on his chest, a spot of red seeping through. "Oh God," she whispered, her hand trembling as she touched a vicious scar on his shoulder blade. How much pain had he endured? She noticed his personal effects on a nearby chair. On impulse, she walked over. His wallet, phone keys, and a small leather pouch. She opened it. Inside were several military medals and a faded photograph of a young Ethan in uniform, his chest covered in decorations, standing proudly with his unit. Victoria stumbled back into the chair, her legs weak. She had thought he was a failure. She had no idea he was a decorated hero. The ordinary life she had looked down on was a piece he had bought with his own blood and pain. Seen enough? The raspy voice made her jump. Ethan was awake, his eyes tired but clear, watching her. I'm so sorry, she stammered, fumbling to close the pouch. I was just... It's fine, Ethan said, trying to sit up, wincing in pain. Don't move. Victoria rushed to his side. You'll tear your stitches. She pressed the call button, then poured him a glass of water, holding it to his lips. He took a sip, nodding his thanks. Caleb, got away, Ethan said, his voice weak but firm. He's dangerous. He'll be back. Don't think about that now, Victoria said softly. You need to rest. After the doctor had checked on him, she gathered her courage. Why did you save me? She asked, looking him in the eye. After what I did, you should hate me. Ethan watched her, his gaze empty of resentment, only a deep calm. Occupational hazard. Don't do that. Her voice broke. You know what I mean? You risked your life for someone who hurt you. It doesn't make sense. He was silent for a moment. Maybe because, in my mind, you were never just my ex-fiancée. The words opened a floodgate. Victoria's tears, held back for so long, finally broke free. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, she sobbed, pressing his hand to her tear-streaked face. I was so stupid. I measured you in dollars and cents. Ethan gently pulled his hand away. Let it go, Victoria. The past is the past. No, she shook her head stubbornly. At least let me make it up to you. Let me take care of you until you're recovered. Ethan sighed. Do what you want. Just then, the door opened and Sophia and Elena walked in. Sophia held a bouquet of baby's breath. She saw Victoria holding Ethan's hand, and her eyes darkened for a split second before she smiled. You're awake. How are you feeling? Much better. Ethan's expression softened instantly. Thank your doctor for me. Elena leaned against the wall. I knew you wouldn't die. The ghost is too stubborn to kick the bucket. Victoria saw it then. The way Ethan looked at Sophia and Elena was completely different from how he looked at her. With them, there was a gentle trust, a camaraderie. With her, there was only a polite, distant forgiveness. The realization hurt more than anything. I'll go get you something to eat, Victoria said, standing, trying to keep her voice steady. The doctor said you can have broth. She fled the room, but heard Elena's voice from behind her. So, did the princess finally figure out who you are? Victoria stopped, pressing her ear to the door. She saw the medals. Ethan's voice replied. Why don't you tell her everything? Sophia asked. There's no point. We're over. But she obviously regrets it. Elena chuckled. I saw the way she was looking at you. So what? Some things, once broken, can't be fixed. Victoria couldn't listen anymore. She stumbled down the hall to a small balcony and gasped for air, trying to calm the storm inside her. He was right. Some mistakes were unforgivable. She had personally pushed away the most precious person in her world. And now he had moved on. 3 days later, Ethan was able to walk for short periods. Victoria barely left his side, despite his protests. Sophia visited daily with homemade soup. Elena appeared sporadically with new intel on the Shadow Syndicate. That afternoon, as Victoria was changing Ethan's dressing, Elena burst in, her face grim. We have a problem. The Shadow Syndicate made their move. Kayla Vance's men just hit Russo Tower. Ethan's body went rigid. Sophia? Missing. Elena's word dropped the temperature in the room. I checked the feeds. She was forced into a black van. It was a professional snatch and grab. Ethan ripped the $4 from his arm. Ignoring Victoria's cry of protest, he started getting dressed. What are you doing? Victoria cried, trying to stop him. Your wounds haven't healed. Move. Ethan's voice was like ice. Every second we waste puts her in more danger. But Elena pulled Victoria aside. It's no use. Once he's made up his mind, nothing can stop him. She tossed Ethan a phone. The tracker is active. There's a GPS chip in her necklace. Ethan nodded, pulling a black tactical jacket over his hospital gown and bandages. In that moment, Victoria saw a man she didn't recognize. His eyes were sharp as shattered glass, his body radiating a deadly energy, like a panther about to strike. I'm going with you, Victoria said suddenly. No, Ethan refused flatly. I have a right to know who is targeting my family and hers, she insisted. And I owe her. If you hadn't been injured saving me, maybe you could have protected her. Ethan stared at her for a few seconds, then finally nodded. Stay close. Don't get in the way. The three of them left the hospital. In the car, Elena handed Victoria a small pistol. Know how to use this? Victoria shook her head. Elena rolled her eyes. Fine. Your job is to stay hidden. Ethan drove, following the tracker on his phone toward the city's outskirts. His profile was carved in shadow, his jaw tight with a desperate urgency. Victoria watched the man who was once so familiar and now so foreign, her heart a tangle of emotions. She finally understood that she hadn't just lost a relationship. She had lost a man worth fighting a war for. And now, that man's heart belonged to another woman. The car turned onto a deserted road, the signal growing stronger. In the distance, the silhouette of another abandoned factory loomed. That's the place, Elena said, checking her pistol. Get ready, Ghost. The Shadow Syndicate isn't the Viper crew. Ethan's eyes turned impossibly cold. I know, and tonight they pay. Victoria shivered. For the first time, she truly felt the terrifying presence of the Ghost. Not as a savior, but as an executioner. The derelict factory loomed against the night sky like a crouched beast. Ethan killed the engine 500 meters out, hidden in a grove of trees. The plan is simple, he said, his voice dangerously low. Elena, you take the west flank, neutralize patrols. I'll create a diversion at the front. Victoria, you stay in the car as backup. What? Victoria's eyes widened. I can't just sit here. You have no combat training. You be a liability. Ethan's words were merciless. If we're not out in 30 minutes, or if you hear sustained gunfire for more than 2 minutes, you drive away and call this number. He handed her a slip of paper. Elena was already armed and ready. Let's go, Ghost. He gave Victoria one last look. Whatever happens, don't leave the car. Before she could answer, they had vanished into the darkness. Victoria gripped the steering wheel, her knuckles white. She hated this feeling of helplessness, of being a burden. But for now, all she could do was wait. Inside the factory, Ethan moved like a phantom, his every step silent. He could hear voices from the second floor, Kayla Vance. Not much time. We need that tech data now. Caleb's voice was anxious. But Thorne's people insist on seeing his daughter before they hand over the final core code, another man replied. Then we'll deal with Sophia Russo first. Send the Thorns the warning. Ethan's eyes went cold. He signaled for Elena to continue her sweep while he moved up the iron staircase. The second floor was a wide-open space. In the center, Sophia was tied to a chair, tape over her mouth. Caleb and 3 armed guards stood over her. A collection of cruel-looking tools spread out on a metal table. Last chance. What's the password for Russo Corp's Biotech Division? Caleb ripped the tape from Sophia's mouth. Sophia lifted her head, her gaze defiant despite her pale face. Go to hell, Caleb. Caleb smirked and picked up a pair of pliers. Looks like you need some encouragement. His words were cut short as a dagger flew through the air and embedded itself in his wrist. He screamed, dropping the pliers. Good evening, Mr. Vance, Ethan said, stepping out of the shadows, his pistol aimed at Caleb's head. I see you didn't learn your lesson. The 3 guards raised their weapons, but before they could fire, 3 soft thumps echoed from above. They crumpled to the ground. Elena appeared from a ventilation duct, smoke curling from the suppressor on her pistol. Ethan! Sophia's eyes lit up with relief. Ethan cut her ropes while scanning the area. Can you walk? Sophia nodded, rubbing her wrists. I'm fine. They want the formula for a neurotoxin my father developed. Chat later, Elena yelled suddenly. It's an ambush! On cue, powerful floodlights ignited around the factory, and at least 20 heavily armed mercenaries stormed in from every entrance. Caleb scrambled behind a stack of crates, screaming, Kill them! Kill them all! Gunfire erupted. Ethan grabbed Sophia, diving behind a heavy piece of machinery as bullets sparked off the metal. Elena, he shouted. Right here, her voice came from above. She was perched on a steel beam, holding several small spheres. Eyes closed. The spheres arced through the air, detonating in blinding flashes of light and ear-splitting noise. The combination of flashbangs and sonic disruptors sent the mercenaries reeling. Go! Ethan scooped up Sophia and sprinted for the nearest exit, Elena providing covering fire from above. They burst out of the factory into the night. The car was just ahead, Victoria already starting the engine. Get in, she yelled, throwing the door open. As they neared the car, Caleb staggered out of the factory, firing a rifle wildly. Ethan instinctively shielded Sophia with his body. A bullet grazed his shoulder, another slammed into his thigh. Ethan! Sophia and Victoria screamed in unison. Elena reacted instantly, firing a single shot that hit Caleb in the shoulder. He cried out and stumbled back into the darkness. Leave him, Ethan ordered as Elena started to give chase. We need to get out of here. They all piled into the car. Victoria slammed her foot on the gas, and the vehicle shot forward. Your leg, Sophia stammered, pressing her hands against the bleeding wound. It's fine. Missed the artery. Ethan gritted out, tearing a strip from his shirt to make a crude bandage. Caleb is backed by the Shadow Syndicate. After this, they'll only escalate. We need backup, Elena said, pulling out her phone. No, Ethan shook his head. This is personal now. The Syndicate's leader, Victor Zhou, and I have a history. Victor Zhou. Victoria glanced at him, surprised. The founder of that multinational tech group. That's his public face, Ethan sneered. In reality, he's one of Asia's biggest crime lords. The car sped into the city. For now, Ethan's apartment was the safest place. Back at the apartment, Sophia carefully cleaned Ethan's wounds while Elena, surprisingly, stitched up his leg with practiced skill. You know how to do that? Victoria asked. Learned on the battlefield, Elena replied curtly. So, Victor, why is he after you? Ethan was silent for a moment. 5 years ago, my mission was to take out his son. The kid had orchestrated a series of school bombings, killed over 100 children. You killed him, Sophia said softly. Yes, and Victor has been hunting me ever since. Ethan's gaze swept over the 3 women. Now he's found my weakness. The room fell silent. They all knew what he meant. So, you're some kind of government agent? Victoria asked. I was. Ethan nodded. Now I'm a freelancer. Assassin, bodyguard, consultant. Call it what you want. And you all knew. Victoria looked at the other 2 women, her voice bitter. I was the only one in the dark. Victoria, Ethan started to say. No, I get it. She cut him off with a sad smile. Why would you trust the person who tried to buy you off for $5 million? The atmosphere turned awkward. Elena watched with amusement, while Sophia pretended to be absorbed in her bandaging. All right, Elena clapped her hands. Since we're all being honest, I've known Ghost for 5 years. We've run 12 missions together, saved each other's lives. We have a special connection. Sophia looked up, her gaze steady. I may not have known Ethan for long, but he's the only person I want to spend my life with. I know who he is, I accept his past, and... She paused. I've already told him how I feel. All eyes turned to Victoria. She flushed, twisting her fingers. I have no right to say anything. Her voice was barely a whisper. I hurt him. I betrayed his trust. But now that I know the truth, I just want to say. She looked up, tears welling in her eyes. I'm sorry, Ethan. I was so shallow. You are the bravest, most noble person I've ever met, and I threw you away. Her heartfelt confession silenced the room. Ethan looked at the 3 incredible, complicated women at a loss. He was comfortable in a firefight, but this was uncharted territory. He began, but was cut off by Elena's phone. She answered, her expression growing serious. When? Are you sure? Okay, keep watching. She hung up. Victor's made his move. His teams have hit both Russo and Thorne research facilities. They're looking for something. The quantum encryption and the neurotoxin, Ethan realized instantly. He wants to combine them to create an untraceable network for bioweapons. We have to stop him, Sophia said. How? Victoria asked. Call the police? The police can't touch the syndicate. Ethan shook his head. So, it's the 4 of us? Victoria asked, incredulous. Ethan's gaze hardened. No, just me. This is my fight. Like hell it is, the 3 women said in unison. Elena scoffed. You think we're going to let you go on a suicide mission? It's not suicide, it's strategy, Ethan insisted. But you need intelligence, logistics, and support, Sophia argued. We have resources. Thorne's security teams, Russo's tech, Elena's underworld network. She's right, Victoria agreed. Let us help you, Ethan. This is about our families now, too. Ethan looked at their determined faces and knew he couldn't refuse. And they were right. To take on the syndicate, he needed a team. All right, he finally conceded. But we do this my way. And when it comes to Victor, I face him alone. This is a blood debt. The women exchanged a look, but didn't argue. Privately, however, each one resolved that they would not let him face the final danger by himself. As the night wore on, a plan began to form. A plan for 4 people to take on a global criminal empire. And at the center of it all was Ethan, no longer just a ghost from the past, but the reluctant leader of a most unlikely team. The sea before dawn was a sheet of black ink. Ethan stood on the deck of the speedboat, the world a sickly green through his night vision goggles. 3 nautical miles to the target. Reports trickled into his earpiece. Tech team is in place. Sophia's voice was calm and clear. We have control of the villa's security systems, ready to cut power and comms on your signal. Support team is standing by. Victoria's tone was all business. Medevac is in a safe position. All exfiltration routes are mapped. Firepower is handled. Elena's voice was laced with dark humor. East and North perimeter guards have been retired. Ethan tapped his mic twice. He was kitted out. Body armor, pistol, combat knife, and a few of Elena's custom gadgets. Tonight, his 5-year war with Victor Joe would end. The boat's engine cut, and it glided silently toward a private dock. Ethan leaped ashore, melting into the shadows. 50 meters ahead was Victor's seaside fortress. The cameras on the walls were already on a 10-minute loop, courtesy of Sophia. East corridor clear. West terrace secure. Master bedroom is empty. Repeat, master bedroom is empty. Elena's updates guided Ethan along his infiltration route. Every step was precise. 5 years of hunting, all coming down to this. The door to the study was ajar. Ethan pressed himself against the wall, hearing Victor's voice from within. The data is secure. Arrange for transport immediately. No, I don't care about the cost. That bastard, Ethan Hayes, must die. Ethan kicked the door open, his pistol leveled. Good evening, Victor. Victor Zhou, an impeccably dressed man in his 60s, didn't look surprised. He smiled coldly and slowly put down the phone. Ghost, I knew you'd come. This is for David, Ethan said, his aim unwavering. And for the 128 children in that school. A flash of pain crossed Victor's face, quickly replaced by hate. My son was a misguided idealist. You murdered him in cold blood. He was a terrorist who detonated the bomb himself. Ethan's voice was arctic. I gave him a chance to surrender. Enough. Victor slammed his hand on the desk. My men are on their way to Russo and Thorne headquarters right now. The women you care about so much will soon. They won't, Ethan interrupted. All of your teams were intercepted by the police half an hour ago. The game is over, Victor. Victor's face went white. He stumbled backward, his hand inching toward a desk drawer. Don't. Ethan's finger tightened on the trigger. Last chance. Surrender. Victor's face contorted in a mask of rage. I'd rather die than surrender to my son's killer. He yanked the drawer open. The gunshot was deafening in the enclosed space. Victor collapsed, a red flower blooming on his chest. Ethan lowered his pistol, his face a blank mask as his 5-year-old vendetta finally bled out on the expensive rug. All clear. Elena's voice crackled in his ear. The villa is secure. The data? Ethan asked. We have it, Sophia replied. The quantum encryption and neurotoxin formulas. All of it is safe. Ethan let out a long breath, the weight of years suddenly lifting from his shoulders. He turned to leave, an unfamiliar exhaustion settling deep in his bones. 3 days later, at Sterling City International Airport. Do you really have to go? Sophia asked, biting her lip to keep it from trembling. Ethan nodded, his gaze sweeping over the 3 women. I need time to figure out who I am. For years, I've lived in the shadow of revenge. I don't know how to live without it. Victoria's eyes were red, but she held herself with dignity. How long? A year, Ethan said softly. If, after a year, you're all still willing to wait, I'll come back. Elena snorted. Don't expect me to sit around crying. I have a job in Europe anyway. A small smile touched Ethan's lips. Take care of them, Elena. More like they'll take care of me, she muttered, but her eyes held a flicker of sadness. The boarding call echoed through the terminal. Ethan gave him one last look, then turned and walked toward security without looking back. 1 year. It was enough time for them to decide if they really wanted a life with a man like him, and enough time for him to learn how to live in a world without ghosts. 1 year later, atop the new Starfall Tower, the tallest building in Sterling City. In the main conference room, 3 women reviewed quarterly reports. Sophia, in a beige power suit, looked vibrant and healthy. Victoria, in a sharp black dress, was the picture of corporate elegance. And Elena, in red leather pants and combat boots, was a beautiful anomaly. Our renewable energy division is up 40%, Sophia smiled. Our security systems now cover every major hub in Asia, Elena added. And the European market expansion is ahead of schedule. Victoria closed her file. At this rate, we'll be a Fortune 500 company by next year. A year ago, they had done the unthinkable, merged their assets, Russo's tech, Thorne's capital, and Elena's network, into a single entity, Starfall Group. The unlikely trinity had created a business empire. The door opened, and a familiar figure walked in. Sorry I'm late. 3 heads snapped up. Ethan stood there, broader, tanner, the shadows gone from his eyes, replaced by a deep, quiet calm. You're back. Sophia was the first on her feet. Ethan nodded, his eyes moving from one to the other. A year ago, I left because a killer with blood on his hands didn't deserve any of you. And now, Victoria asked softly. Now I know who I am, Ethan said, walking to the table. I'm not the ghost anymore, but I'm not an ordinary man, either. There will always be enemies, always be danger. He took a breath. If you're willing to accept that. You talk too much, Elena interrupted, grabbing his collar and kissing him hard. Welcome home, you bastard. Sophia and Victoria came forward. Sophia gave him a gentle hug. We already made our choice. Victoria handed him a folder. Your share agreement. As the 4th founder of Starfall Group, you own 25%. Ethan stared. What? Don't look so surprised. Elena rolled her eyes. You think we just sat around waiting for you? The three of us. We work well together, Sophia explained with a smile. Victoria handles the business, Elena runs security, and I'm in charge of R&D. As for your relationship with us, Victoria blushed slightly. We've come to a unique understanding. Ethan raised an eyebrow. Which is? The women exchanged a look. Elena spoke. Simply put, we all love you. And you love all of us. Don't deny it. And over the past year, we've become sisters. So why not try a new model? Ethan looked at the three brilliant, powerful women, speechless. He had never imagined this. It wasn't about choosing one. It was about building something new with all of them. Is that even possible? Only one way to find out. Elena grinned, slinging her arms around the other two. We've been testing it for a year. So far, so good. Sophia nodded, her cheeks pink. Life's too short to be bound by convention. Victoria looked him straight in the eye. This time, we all know what we want and what it will cost. Are you willing to try? Ethan looked at their expectant faces, and, for the first time in a long time, he laughed. A real, unburdened laugh. I am. 3 months later, on the roof of Starfall Tower. The city lights glittered below. Ethan leaned against the railing, watching the bay. He heard the footsteps behind him, distinguishing each one. Sophia's light, rhythmic step, Victoria's firm, confident stride, and Elena's bold, swaggering gait. What are you thinking about? Sophia asked, handing him a glass of whiskey. The past, he said. If someone told me 3 years ago that this would be my life, I'd have called them insane. Victoria chuckled. Who knew the broke drifter would end up the cornerstone of Starfall Group? Hey, Ethan feigned offense. I still dress simply, you know. But you're worth billions now, darling, Elena said, wrapping her arms around him from behind. A billionaire in a $20 t-shirt. That's the definition of stealth wealth. They all laughed together. A soft breeze blew in from the ocean. Below them, the Starfall Group logo glowed, for intertwined stars representing their unique, unbreakable bond. So what's next? Sophia asked. We've cornered the Asian security tech market. Europe? Victoria suggested. The Americas, Elena countered. Ethan took a sip of whiskey, a familiar glint of adventure in his eyes. Why not the whole world? Starfall's journey has only just begun. Yes, the three women murmured in unison, their adoring eyes fixed on him. End.